Here we are today with another episode of the Women in Electronics podcast series. Our leader in highlight today is Colin Strother from Rochester Electronics. And so I wanted to introduce him. I'm so grateful and honored to have you on the program. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Colin, to introduce yourself, your title, and what you do at your organization.
Well, thank you, Jackie, and thanks for having me on the podcast. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm Executive Vice President of Rochester Electronics, and in my role, I'm responsible for global sales, marketing, supply development, product and technology, supply chain operations, and business applications. But what that really boils down to is driving customer success. So there's three things that I'm really focused on, which is maximizing our product offer, customer engagement, and a frictionless experience. Um, and a huge focus for the company at the minute, me personally, is our digital transformation strategy, as we try to meet the customer where they're at, online, offline, or a combination.
Well, that's a big job. Definitely needed right now, for sure. So, okay. So this is a big position. There's just been a lot going on in our industry and in the world as a leader navigating in this time. If you reflect back, like tell us a little bit of your background and your history and kind of what led you to this point of this leadership position you have now.
So I've been in the industry now for, wow, I think it's nearly 32 years, and it's went by in a flash. And I started out as an engineer at a contract manufacturer, which is now owned by Plexus in their Scottish location. Moved into field sales roles with suppliers and then sales management, ultimately joining Rochester in 2007 as European Sales Director, built up the business in EMEA, and then in 2014 moved to the US to assume some global responsibilities. So I've been with the company for 16 years, but the industry is the only industry I've ever worked in. So in some instances, it would appear to be a big role, but it's all I've ever done and it's all I've ever known. So and I really always enjoyed it. So to me, it's just a continuous journey and progression.
So that's really good. Where are you from? Tell us about your background, or where did you grow up with this accent of yours?
So I do have a hint of an accent. So I was born in Edinburgh in Scotland, and my wife is from the area, and my children were also born in Scotland as well. Although we moved near London for many years before the US. So being Scottish is certainly more of a blessing than a curse. Sometimes when it comes to communicating, I have to try to speak a little more slowly. But I think because Scotland was never really a sovereign nation for hundreds of years, we tended not to offend too many people. So I've been very, very fortunate in my travels that the Scottish accent does bring curiosity, and I always travel with good manners, a sense of humor, and a smile, and that's really helped me globally for many years, especially as you're dealing with different people from different backgrounds and different cultures.
Oh, and I have to say, I'm just saying my experience, most people, Scottish people that I've met are very pleasant. Uh, and I love what you said, manners, that's so important. Being pleasant, having that smile takes you so far. I really appreciate that a lot. And I have experienced that with, people from Scotland for some reason. You must really enjoy your upbringing or something in Scotland. So.
I don't know. I was in the UK last week, and I was able to get to Scotland for the weekend past, and I saw my mum. So
Aw.
I think when I meet with my mum, she still sees me as like a 5-year-old kid. So if she caught me talking to someone without using good manners, she's always in the background reminding me of what's right and wrong, right? So I think it probably comes from upbringing, and hopefully something that my wife and I instill in our kids as well.
Oh, I love that. The values, and we're going to get into that. But okay, so here you are. In your organization, what do you the organization as it in its own right is very successful and has accomplished a lot. What do you attribute to the success of the organization?
It really all started with an idea, and our founder and CEO, Mr. Kargarish, founded the business in 1981, and at that point, the industry was probably a little less mature, and he felt there was a need for an authorized source of ongoing supply of components that had became end of life. So really, I feel that he was a pioneer in our industry who found a need for the supplier community and the customer base, and really built the company on that idea. And I look at the mission statement that we have today, and we've looked at this many times over the last, I guess, over 40 years, but we've never changed it because it's the business is built on a foundational idea, and then core principles. And the one that always shines out to me is making the customer glad they called. And when I mentioned earlier that one of my main focuses is customer engagement, and then I led on to meeting the customer where they're at, we've always maintained that philosophy. And the other element is our culture. And there's a phrase that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Well, you need the two, because you need to be able to take a vision to a plan to a strategy to tactics to results. But as we've grown over the years, and massively in the last 16 years I've been here, we're in every major market globally. And as we get bigger, it's trying to identify and bring people to our company that have, can bring diversity, but also have core values. And we fight hard to preserve them. And I think that is really our success. And during the last 2 3 years of the pandemic, with the shortages especially, we're working really, really hard to meet customer demand. And, we weren't necessarily on time always with everything we done. And we kind of take that personally. But then as I came out of COVID and met with customers face to face, the reception I got was tremendous, because where we maybe felt that we were not doing as well as we wanted with our standard, the customer base really did appreciate the efforts that we went to. And not everything goes right all of the time, but I think it's how you react when things don't, and the honesty and transparency that you have. So to me, it was very clear upon joining Rochester that this was the company culture, which is one of the reasons I actually did join, and then one of the reasons I moved myself and family to the US in 2014 on a permanent basis. And I'm very proud that we hold ourselves to these values each and every day.
Well, that is really powerful. I think I wrote down, you said culture eats strategy. That is so true. And if we could just get people to understand that culture is felt throughout the entire organization, and it all starts from the top, and it has to
Yeah.
be authentic and real. So I really like that. And then you also said that that spirit of wanting the customer to call and have them be happy that they called. Right now in our time, it's interesting. We're blocked from that a lot. It's like you barely can get a phone number on a website anymore, right? You can't talk to people. You're just, oh, go online and figure it out yourself. I actually love that you said that.
Yeah, whether it's trying to call the cable company, or whatever else it might well be. Um, and in a world of AI and AI bots that certainly have their place in guiding the conversation. But sometimes now when you call in your personal life, it's actually a relief to reach someone at the other end of the phone that
Yes.
listens to your problem and helps you solve it. So much as digital transformation is a huge focus, really, I was in Brazil recently, and I was talking to a customer, and the lady wanted to meet face to face to just to see how we could help her be more successful. She also wanted to talk to her inside salesperson real time, but she also wanted to go online and get the information that she might need very, very quickly and self-serve. So really, I think today, for me, you've got to meet the customer where they're at, but in every way that they want to be met. And that's what we're really striving to do. And as an old-fashioned engineer and field sales guy at heart, it's kind of heartening to me that there's still a place for me and our team to make a difference, right? You can't beat the human connection, and it's probably one of the favorite things about my role. I'm just back from the UK. In a couple of weeks, I'll be in an event in Washington, DC, then off to Arizona, then off to China. And there's a sacrifice to my family for me doing that, but I get huge energy from that. I always have done. I'm kind of curious, so it's kind of heartwarming after the pandemic, which is quite difficult for someone like me, as you can imagine,
Yes.
to sit still in one place. To be out and about now, it's kind of a blessing to be able to do that, and I certainly don't take it for granted. I never did, but even more so after the challenges that we've been through.
Yes, and I think you make a good point. Before I go into my next question for you, I just want to comment that the AI conversation that you're talking about and the digital transformation, we have to be careful as an industry not to lose our humanity and
Yeah.
not to lose that human connection. So a lot of us who grew up in this industry, same thing. I remember a day when I could go pull up to a customer with all my catalogs in the back of my trunk and pull out what was, go into the lobby, ask if the engineer was
Yeah.
there, and they'd say, "Sure, I'll go see," and I could just show up, right? And we could just sit in the lobby, talk about some things, and then follow up later. And it was really just nice in that regard. So we have so many
Yeah.
barriers now, and I think you're right. We just cannot replace that human condition. So us as an industry, as we're moving forward with technology and advancing so many things we do, we also have to be thinking of these things as how are we meeting the customer where they're at, and having that ability for them to meet in person as well.
Yeah, and you can think of the oxymoron there. We are the industry that's driving artificial intelligence. It is built on semiconductor products, for
Yep.
example. But there's a balance. I got the train from Edinburgh to London on Sunday, and I tried to read about generative AI, and I tried to understand it a little bit. And I think there's going to be real good uses for good. It's just got to be done in the right way. And I think there's a lot of talk on this at the moment, and it's an exciting topic. But it also reminds me a little about the movies. I'm a big movie fan of like the Terminator and these types of things, where machine takes over man. So there's always a balance, but there's something heartwarming in the human connection, and I don't think there's anything that'll ever replace that.
Yes, and let's hope not. But again, to piggyback on what you just said, we do have to be looking at the future of what work looks like, because AI will take over a lot of positions. So we do, as an industry, need to be collaborating and talking through these issues more to decide moving forward in 5 years or 10 years, what does the condition of work look like? What are those positions? And how do we prepare now? And how do we factor in humanity? So I think these are
Yeah.
just critical conversations.
I read an article last week, Jackie, and I think it was one of the major banks were talking about AI could put 300 million jobs at
Yes.
jeopardy worldwide. But then it went on to talk about the effect of the Industrial Revolution, and then the introduction of the personal computer, and how that then kind of generated future growth, future job creation, etc. So that was an interesting thought. It's how can you get to that point without incurring a negative along the way, right? Because uh, we don't want to be losing people, certainly people in our industry as well, as we then wait for that change to occur. So it's an interesting um, dilemma, but I guess we're very fortunate that we're actually at the heart of this, because we are in the middle of the industry and on the components that is going to drive it, so we can be part of that conversation.
Which is so fascinating to me. And I'm so glad I could actually talk to you about these things. So talking about conversations and the whole conversation we're having, so much involved with our industry getting where we want to go, looking at things moving forward and how we have to do things so differently. But if you look at that, what I rely on mentors, right? I rely on people I look up to and aspire to, or people I get input from. Who have been your mentors along the way, and who is it that you'll be looking for, as we move forward?
That's a great question. And when you think of what does mentorship mean, to me it means advice and support. And I think I've been very fortunate to get that from a lot of different people at different times in my career. Um, Really, in every company I've worked for, I've worked for, as I say, contract manufacturer. I've worked for Arrow Electronics, a variety of other companies, and there's always been people who have been there to help and guide me. Um, in Rochester over the last 16 years, I've been fortunate to get that. This might sound a bit unusual, but from my own team, right? I believe in servant leadership, and believe me, my team are confident to give me advice, which is great. But in Rochester itself, my manager, Mr. Chris Garish, our co-president, he's always been there to give me advice and direction, but not just from a business perspective. So, for example, when I moved over to the US in 2014, he was aware that my children were young and we didn't have the support network. So whether that was helping look at where I was going to live, or making sure that my family were going to be happy and my kids would be prospering in school, and even on a more personal level, inviting me to his home for my first ever Thanksgiving. So I've got a lot of people to be thankful to. But as I say, today it's my team and my manager that are always there. And sometimes you don't have to be overly present, because as I travel a lot, I'm on my own a lot, for example. Um, but it's knowing that the people are there for you in any circumstance when you need them. And I try to make sure that that's something that I am doing myself. Anybody needs me for anything, I'm hopefully there to spring into action and provide that to them, because I think it's kind of a reciprocal thing.
I think, and you mentioned something kind of critical. As a leader in your position, it is sometimes actually a little lonely because you are on your own a lot, like traveling and different, hotels and, being gone from your family. So sometimes it is a little lonely, and it is nice to know you have that support system for you. So good to know for other people when they're reaching out. We just never know what somebody needs at that time. So I think that mentorship, being a mentor and having mentors, or just even that support system, as you mentioned, is so critical. Um,
Absolutely.
yes. And so, okay, so that leads me to my next question, though. So, what are some of your leadership guiding principles? So, you mentioned values, and just kind of how you want to live your life and the company and what the company stands for. So, what are your guiding principles that you live by, but also that you would impart on a next generation of leaders?
That's a great question, and I've spend a lot of time in airports and I pick up books, and I'm always busy, but you can be busy in your own thoughts as well. I'm always thinking things. You can create something physically, and you can create in your mind. So I'm always looking to
Yes.
learn something, and I'm a big reader of autobiographies as well, right? So you quite often know I'll buy a book, and if it doesn't talk to me, I just really put it down. The Scotsman in me hates the fact I've wasted 10, $20, but I put it down, right? And there's so many books on leadership, and actually there's a lot of conflicting thoughts to this. So um, I believe I believe you have to be your authentic self. Uh, if you're looking to do any role where you're looking to bring people with you, to inspire people, it's got to be authentic, and it's got to be built on trust, which is saying what you're going to do and doing what you say. And I could go into a lot more theoretical answers, but authenticity and trust, I think are it's what I focus on. And everyone has their own style. I think inside Rochester, I probably have a very unique style. But I'm very grateful to the Gerrish family, because the one thing they've always allowed me to do, which I think has helped me be successful in others, is to be my authentic self, um, warts and all. So, yeah, authenticity and trust.
Well, I really like that. And to circle back, I love that you mentioned your mom. And it's like you've got that mom in the back of your head a lot saying, okay, use nice manners, present yourself well. I love that too. And you also had mentioned servant leadership, which I really appreciate, because that is saying humble leadership, right? That it's important to be humble and always have that spirit of curiosity like you were talking about as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. And the spirit of curiosity, growing up in Scotland in the 70s and 80s, it was a time of a lot of change. A lot of the industries, the traditional industries, um, closed. There's a lot of there was like social unrest and strikes and things. And I've always been a big movie television person, and that curiosity, it was like it was a window to a world, right? And I think that's why I actually live in America today. Is um, I was always curious to to go far and wide, and to meet different people of different cultures, um, different languages. And I think that's really a blessing in my role, because if you're going to do any global role, you've really got to strive to think of how you can reach the person that's farthest from you physically, than the person that's your next door neighbor in the office. And I think one of the reasons uh, my boss, Mr. Chris Gerrish, brought me to the US was because I already came with a lot of knowledge of the company, but I'd spent maybe 7 years in a different region that wasn't that corporate. And if you're the EMEA guy, with the Scottish accent, when you leave Scotland, you're having to think about your accent and different cultures, and especially the UK. We're an island, but we're 22 miles from our neighbour across the channel. So when you have that kind of role, you're visiting Scandinavia, you're visiting the Middle East, you're visiting all across Europe. So it's a massive collection of cultures and languages and experiences all at once. So coming to the US with tremendous culture and history and diversity, and then being able to go into Asia, it really is a tremendous opportunity for someone of my curiosity. And again, I guess I've got a bit of an addiction to continue to spread the gospel about Rochester. And we're continually looking to open new locations. We'll open another two or three this year: Italy, Taiwan. We've just hired in Brazil. And it does mean a lot of time away, as we talked about. But then again, I'm reading, I'm watching, I'm listening, I'm learning, and I'm lost in my own thoughts. So it's a real privilege. And again, when I'm in these locations, Jackie, it's so important for me when, say, I'm in Singapore or I'm in Sao Paulo, that person feels as connected to Rochester as I do, and that customer feels as connected to Rochester as the customers here in Massachusetts. So yeah, it all kind of comes together, and I'm just fortunate that I feel that the role fits me. And if it does and you enjoy it, it kind of natural, right? Which comes right back to authenticity.
I love that. We had a prior conversation as well, and you said one thing that struck me, and that was that at Rochester, in your type of leadership, you look at who people are versus what they can do, to bring out their full potential. So just speak to that real quick as we get to the conclusion of the interview. I have a couple more things to ask you.
Sure. And we're a privately founded and owned company. and we're beholden to ourselves. And when I interview people, it's a two-part. I always say there's two parts to this, so hold on for part two. Don't worry. But I I believe that the expectations on that person should be the highest of any other uh, company in their career, and the reason is because we are going to measure people not only what they do but who they are. Now, the second part is because we're going to value people for not only what they do, but who they are. And I joke that, if I had someone join and they were able to do uh, uh, something, but they had an evil twin that could do a little more, I will never hire the evil twin, right? Because we will work with that person and we'll get a better result in the long term anyway. And it all comes back to the start of the conversation when we talked about culture. So we spend a lot of time on hiring accuracy, but ultimately it's relatively easy to find the right people because what you're looking for is core values. And if people have the right core values, then there may be skills that we can teach, and competencies that we can teach, but you can't teach core values. It comes from within, back to my mum, right? Back to your upbringing. So sometimes it can look complicated from the outside, but I think sometimes the easiest way to do things is to kind of simplify them.
Oh, that's you're preaching to the choir here. It's the hardest thing in this world is to simplify, right? But I love that too. So, okay. So I have just a couple more things to talk to you about, but maybe I'll just throw this in one question. Is so we look at our leadership, we look at where we're going moving forward. We know that the human component in leadership is so essential, right, in our modern day. So, what are the things, if we look at you as a person, as a leader, just you individually, what are the things that make you sad as a human, and what are the things that make you happy?
Um, it's a good question, and I think we've touched on this before. So I the Scottish people are it's a kind of unique dynamic where if you think of a Scottish person, you maybe think we're very, very passionate, and that's true. But there's stoicism as well. So my parents picked me up from the train station at the weekend, and there was a kind of rather awkwardness of, is it a hug or is it a handshake with my dad? And of course it's a hug, right? But so we're typically not great at showing some inner emotions, but then we can be quite passionate in a fiery type of way. So I thought a lot about this since we last spoke, and you know what it boils down to, what I really, 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 really dislike is injustice in any shape or form. I think of movies that I watch and someone that's innocent taking a plea deal, and I'm like, don't do it, don't do it. And I think of movies that make me emotional at the end, whether it's E.T. or Rocky, where there's triumph of kind of good
Yes,
over evil, right? So
yes.
so what makes me unhappy is any form of injustice, and this is really why I'm so pleased that we're partnering with women in electronics, because what we want to really drive here as well is our core principles about diversity, inclusion, and belonging, right? So that there's no one excluded from a conversation. Um, what makes me happy when I think about my career? I mean, I could talk about Glasgow Rangers, my soccer team. If they win, it makes me happy. If they get beat, it makes me very unhappy. But that's something slightly different. But when I think about my career, and one of the areas I'm focused on is driving the revenue number. It's a business, um, and but I never think of the orders that we've won or the orders that we've lost. And when I'm lost in my thoughts or I'm on my phone on an aircraft, I'm looking at the moments. I'm looking at the moments where I'm maybe celebrating Chinese New Year with colleagues and listening to my terrible karaoke, um, or just spending time with people, right? And I really do feel in my life and my career where I or the company has been most successful is where you've got a collection of people all working together successfully towards a common aim. And that's where the magic happens. And as a people manager, sometimes it can be, it's a little brutal, right? Because people are all doing different things. But the most inspiring aspect of my role that makes me happiest, which can answer the whole question, is when you get a group of people coming together in alignment, and, it feels like an unstoppable force. But when you see the happiness that people get from it as well, individually and collectively, if you could bottle that, Jackie, that would be it for me.
Ah, I love that. And really that provides a sense of belonging to people, right? I mean, that just makes you feel like no matter how different you are, you belong in that group. And I really
Yeah.
think it's a core something that we all really want to feel a part of something. We all want to feel like we belong. And so really, we're really grateful that we're in this partnership together for women electronics and your organization and you as a leader. So I just want to thank you for that. And any final words from you before we sign off on our podcast?
Um, yeah. So, one of the reasons that I really wanted to to have the conversation and for Rochester to be, partnering with women in electronics. Um, I was at Electronica in November, and we took a group picture, and I, I was really delighted when I looked at the picture with the diversity we had across the team participating at the show, uh, role types, um, gender, culture, background. I was really, really delighted. But then when I studied it more, there was an area of the group that was really, really male dominated, and that was our field sales team. So I really thought, why is that? And we tend to hire technically led people from an engineering background like myself, so they can understand the products, and they can have the engaged conversation. And I then thought back to my time at college, when I did it, electronic engineering, and there was only one lady in the class, and she never finished the course. So when I think of it and I look at the statistics on STEM, for example, I think we've got to do more to encourage the broadest pool, uh, uh, to be interested in our industry. And I think it starts at a college level. And talking to my own daughter, who's will graduate this year from UNH. She's been an intern at Rochester every summer for many years, and she's grew up through the company. Um, but she thinks of tech as SaaS providers, for example, as Netflix, as Google. Um, I think of tech as electronic components of PCBs.
Yes.
Um, and but the software is built on hardware, and um, I think I'm hopeful that with the unfortunate shortages and the focus on semiconductors as a result of the pandemic, but now with the CHIPS Act, and there's other acts in the UK and around the world, are we going to go through a bit of a renaissance of our industry, that we can attract people to it who otherwise wouldn't really think of it, because over 30 years into it, it's maybe more of a mature industry for me, but it's not. It's technology. So I just wanted to kind of finish on that one of the reasons to really partner with you is I really do believe that there's an opportunity right here, right now, to drive the most inclusive base to come into our industry at a variety of levels, but particularly at the level of education. So we can do more to level the statistics of people interested in STEM at the moment, because I think we're probably biased on this call, but we love our industry, right? So we need to share that, because it's a fantastic industry. It's an exciting industry. It's certainly has its turbulence, but it gives us the opportunity to we talked about AI, but at least we can get involved in that conversation. And here at Rochester, we're continuing to support current businesses and legacy businesses with our ongoing source of product supply. So I think the time is now. and I'm really hopeful that there's enough power and enough initiatives behind us that we can really make a difference in the coming years. And maybe my daughter is interested in semiconductors. Maybe she comes to work for Rochester or another company. Maybe she does something different. I don't mind what she does, but I think that everyone really should look at our industry equally to other industries.
I love that final note because I agree with you 100%. And I really believe that we need to put ourselves more on the map as far as being a part of the tech world and not just in the background, right? It's not just all the software and digital. It has to happen collectively. So with that, we are on the same page with a lot of things, and I've really enjoyed this conversation very much, and very grateful and honored to have you all as a part of our sponsor family. So thank you so much.
Awesome, Jackie. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.